All right, so hello. Welcome to the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit. Thank you all for attending today. We asked just some Zoom rules and things we all agree on, that you would kindly keep your microphones on mute for the whole meeting. If you raise your hand or have an issue or you type something into the chat, we'll try to make sure we respond and that you can be heard, like we did last month, where a couple people needed to speak their questions instead of type them. That was fine. And I thank you all for waiting patiently while we did that. I'm sharing my screen right now for a moment so we can see the agenda. I'm here for your technical support. So if you have any tech issues, please message me. I'm Brianna Van Velzen with Duke Chapel and the Coalition during the meeting, and I'll try to help you take care of that. And we're gonna do a lot like we did last time, where we introduce ourselves in the chat. So I encourage you to pull up the chat, say who you are, say hello, say where you're from, how you're involved in the Coalition, and we'll go ahead and get started with our spotlight for our Southside Neighborhood Association, Camelia Faust, who's the president.
Yes, hello, this is Camelia Faust. Of course, I'm having problems with the computer. I'm a resident of the Southside neighborhood and also the president of the Southside Neighborhood Association. Do I need to say something?
Thank you. If you could just share a little bit about what your Southside Association is doing. And I think, Larissa, you had a specific question maybe?
Okay. I just really wanted to talk about the grant, the tax grant for the Neighborhood Association. I'm kind of threw it off a little bit. I apologize.
That's all right.
We're just asking the long-time Southside homeowners. We'll just want the support from the support for the long-time homeowners, for the low income, to stay in their homes. You know, for example, like most of the homeowners are seniors and disabled people that's on fixed income, and we are struggling to stay in a home because our taxes have risen, and we would just like to get the support to continue with the tax assistance to stay to continue to stay in our home because of not only the South Side but the South Central Durham as well as the Northeast Durham, that areas that was gentrified neighborhoods. Many homeowners, have lost their jobs because of the coronavirus and the income, and maybe risk of losing their homes because of the taxes. And I'm also giving homeowners papers to fill out so they can have help with other assistance that y'all have with the city and the county. This tax grant would help Southside residents with lower income homeowners as well as myself to stay in our homes. We reach out to several homeowners and to let them know about this program, and hopefully the city will send something else out as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw that Mary Smart had a question. Would you like to go ahead and ask that question very quickly, and then we'll move on to the rest of our agenda? All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Wib then. Um, and I will let him continue to facilitate the meeting as we're going to be hearing from Mayor Steve Schewel today. Welcome to everyone. Welcome elected officials. Thank you all for using the chat feature, and I will be monitoring from the sidelines. Go ahead, Wib.
Thank you, Brianna. We're very grateful to have you as our tech whiz during this age of virtual meetings. I want to add my word of welcome to everyone. It is great to have you. It was 67 folks and growing, and we appreciate you all making time to be with us today. Normally we'd go around the room and introduce everybody, but I guess in the interest of time and to deal with this, we're just going to jump straight into the program. I do want to say, though, that I noticed that we're joined by at least a couple of city council folks as well. Charlie Reese, it's good to have you with us, and Mark Anthony Middleton, the same. And I think Heidi Carter from the County Commissioners, Board of County Commissioners is with us, and we appreciate that. We have Drew Cummings, who is Chief of Staff for the City County Manager. And I know Drew gets with us every chance he can. And we're also fortunate to have Karen Lotto making time to be with us today, from the City of Durham staff and the affordable housing work that goes forward. As you saw, and hopefully you could see it in what Brianna put up, we're going to today have Mayor Schewel talk to us some about the city's affordable housing work in the era of a pandemic. Then we're going to, the mayor's going to speak for 20, 30 minutes, and then we're going to have questions and some discussion. But by 12:50, we're going to cut things off because we need to have a series of brief updates on some of the key engagements that the coalition's been involved with, so that everybody's brought up to speed on that and has a sense of actually how you can help, the role you can help play on some of these things. We're going to adjourn by 12 noon, about 1 o'clock. So that's a rough sense of the agenda. As he's been introduced before, Mayor Schewel really needs no introduction. But I feel like it's important to note a couple things. He came to Durham in 1969 as an undergraduate at Duke, and I think it understates it to say he's been deeply immersed in the civic and political life of our community. But he's been former vice chair of the school board, served there for a number of years, 6 years on the Durham City Council, and was reelected last year as mayor of the city. Particular commitments, he says, and I believe, to the issues of homelessness, immigration, affordable housing, civil rights, policing and crime, shared prosperity for everyone, and the preservation of open space, trails, and parks. A lot of you all know the mayor from his days as the founder and publisher of the Independent Weekly for decades in Durham, and the wonderful role they play. He also teaches at the Sanford School of Public Policy. That is when it's not an era of pandemic and he has time to breathe. He and his wonderful wife, Leo, raised 2 boys in Durham, graduates of the Durham Public Schools. He's been a long time youth soccer coach, a reader, a runner, and he fancies himself a pretty good cook. Something you don't know about the mayor, perhaps. Steve, with that, I want to say how happy we are that you've made time to be with us and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Webb. I appreciate it. Glad to be with you guys. It's a great organization that can get 72 people on a Zoom call. Good job, everybody. And Brianna, thank you for being the tech whiz. It's a new era. I'm trying to learn it, and I know everybody else is too. It is a beautiful thing to look at this screen, I will say, and to see all the faces. And I do also see my city council colleague, Javiera Caballero, here as well, Wib. I just wanted to acknowledge Javiera. Wow. I think I'll say something first before I get into housing, just about where we are in terms of the pandemic, because I think that's important. We're doing pretty well in Durham. We have nearly 1,000 cases. I expect by the end of today or tomorrow, we'll have more than 1,000 cases. We have 37 deaths. So when I say we're doing pretty well, we need to keep that in perspective. These are very difficult times for families, people who are sick, people who have lost loved ones. A lot of our cases are in congregate facilities. 163 of them in the federal prison at Butner, several hundred in nursing and rehab facilities, 57 from travel very early on, Duke-related travel, and about 175 cases of community spread, which is a very low number, which is great. Community spread means we don't know the close contact. We don't have a close contact for someone. We don't know how they got the disease. We don't know who they contracted it from. We do really good job, I believe, our public health service on contact tracing, and I think that's helped us. We have about 20 contact tracers in our county public health department, about 25 coming from the state, and 13 Duke physician's assistant students who are doing contact tracing as well. We're up to now, probably by the end of the month, we'll be able to do, well, maybe even sooner. Right now, we can do about 1,600 tests a day. I think by the end of the month, we'll be well over 2,000. Whether or not these things are enough, we don't really know. Same with our PPE, if we have enough. We know what the state goals are, but we need to know what we need locally going forward. And we have a Durham Recovery and Renewal Task Force that's established. And that task force has really got great membership. And it's going to look at whether or not we have enough of those things, and if not, how to get them. And on the other side of that task force, there's a series of roundtables, and those roundtables will be working with, there's already the clergy roundtables already met, the restaurant roundtables already met. Today, the child care roundtables meeting. And so there'll be lots of these roundtables. There's a transportation roundtable. There's a lot of industry groups that are going to be working together to try to help us figure out how to successfully and safely reopen. How fast are our cases rising? This I think is important. Our cases, we had 163 cases with the Butner Federal Prison added about 2 weeks ago. And in the 2 weeks since, we've been averaging about 13 cases a day has been our growth rate, our growth level. Our growth rate in the past couple of weeks has been about less than 1.5%, which means our cases are doubling more than every 50 days. So those are good things. It's slow, but what we also know is it means we have very little community immunity. And if we do get an outbreak, there's plenty of place in Durham for this disease to go. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on that because I think it's important for everybody to get positioned in that all the time and understand it. I'm happy to answer any questions about that or our local stay-at-home order as well, which we issued again on Friday and which we've issued indefinitely. We don't have an end date for it. We will evaluate it every week to amend and lift it when it's ready to be lifted. This has all, of course, had incredible effects on our housing and on our housing market, but especially on just humans. We know that nationally, a third of people have not been able to pay their rent. We know that our Latinx population, I read recently, a much higher figure than that, has not been able to pay their rent. This is a terrible problem and is really going to be a terrible problem when the moratorium on evictions, which the Chief Justice has instituted, is lifted. We're all super concerned about that. I'm going to speak to that a little bit in a minute. The COVID-19 has also transformed the housing market in general. The LIHTC market, the low-income housing tax credit market, which we all depend on so much, has been thrown up in the air. It'll probably take a year before it's settled down. Fortunately, all these projects have long lead times, so we can keep going with our work and hope by that time that we're ready that market will have calmed down some. It's transformed the construction market, especially the rehab market. It's one thing to keep new construction going. It's another to, for example, displace people to rehab their units in the time of a pandemic. That's not something that we can do or want to do. It's hard to figure out where the housing market is going. Durham, we've been the beneficiaries lately of so many people wanting to move here, which has caused a lot of our gentrification pressures as well. We don't really know what will mobility be like in the next year or two. People will be moving out of the big cities. I think it's pretty clear, more towards cities like ours. And one of the things that you all saw probably is a report by Moody's that Durham is one of the best situated cities in the country for recovery. And And one of the things they base that on is that we don't have a lot of population density compared to the bigger cities in the country. But I don't know about what our in-migration will be like, and I don't think anyone really does. And although it seems like housing prices have remained pretty stable and for sale, I don't know what that rental market's going to be like once the moratorium is lifted. I think we're all very, very worried. I know we're all extremely worried, especially people on this call, about what's going to happen when that moratorium is lifted. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But those are some of what I see as kind of the bigger trends that are of concern. I will talk now about the fact that the city has, well, let me talk first about some emergency work related to housing and to homelessness. I really want to thank, I know Drew's on the call. I don't know if Colin Davis is on the call or not. But I really appreciate the good work that our folks that in working on homelessness through the Emergency Operations Center have done. And Drew and Colin have been leading this with a lot of help from others. But we've been able to relocate everyone from Urban Ministries into a hotel so that people can be socially distanced. That number is up, I believe, now to 148, at least last I heard. I think 150 is the limit. So we went from 100 originally, and I'm really happy that they've been able to get more people into that hotel. The county is fronting the money for this. It should be able to be 75% FEMA reimbursed, but I want to thank the county for fronting that money. And also, I want to say that I don't know exactly how long this can last. So there's a lot of discussion about, the funds for that, how to, and if we need to, so a lot of work is now going on around rehousing those 150 folks, trying to use our rapid rehousing and other resources to try to rehouse 75 of them. And then the other 75, when they have to move back, can move back into Urban Ministries in a socially distanced way. So that work is ongoing, a lot of thoughts being given to it. It doesn't have an exact timetable, but I did want to mention that because it's very important. Families Moving Forward has decided to keep their folks there at Families Moving Forward, and I want to really commend them and Urban Ministries for the wonderful work they've done to try to make all this happen. It's been super hard, and they both just deserve a huge amount of credit, and I'm really very grateful for that. One of our biggest issues, I think you all know, is a quarantine hotel for homeless people who are coming down with COVID-19. We have a few places now provided by Duke sort of on a spot basis where people can be placed, but again, this homelessness team from the Emergency Operations Center is working very hard to try to figure out a quarantine situation. We haven't been able to do it because the long and the short of it is the hotels and there's especially the hotel staff do not want to be housing quarantine COVID patients who are being quarantined. They're scared of it. So there are some creative solutions that are being worked on. I don't believe there's one that's pretty far along that involves having 16 to 24 rooms supported by the city, the county, Alliance, and perhaps Duke that would provide such a facility for quarantine. I think that if Drew's on the call and can say if it's okay to talk more detail about that now, but I know that that's still something that's being worked on, and I think we're pretty close to having a pretty decent solution. But that's important. We've been very lucky so far that we haven't had an outbreak among our homeless population, and part of it's luck, part of it is good work and moving quickly to get our urban ministry folks rehoused. Now let me talk a little bit about some of the other money that we have coming down from, the county is getting $5.5 million roughly in CARES money that is flexible. The city is not getting that flexible money. We're getting two pots of money. We're getting about $12 million for our transit system, to be used exclusively for our transit system. And we're getting about, I believe, $1.3 million from through Community Development Block Grant from the federal government And that's what I want to talk about. There's my colleagues from the council who are on the call haven't heard this yet, and I have just heard it from staff, and I appreciate them briefing me. But the whole council will hear about this very, very soon, and we'll be discussing it this week on Thursday in our work session. The staff is recommending $950,000 of that go to emergency rental assistance once the moratorium is lifted. This, of course, is in addition to the money that we're already putting into the $500,000 that we're putting into legal aid assistance for eviction diversion. This $950,000 would be in a cooperative program with the county social services and with legal aid. There would be an income restriction on the way that this eviction assistance would be used. But I'm really pleased that we're going to be able to put the bulk of the money that we're receiving from the federal government to what I think is a crying need. We're also going to be putting, if the staff of recommendations approved, $100,000 into foreclosure prevention counseling. As you know, foreclosures are also a huge worry at this time. We have one experienced local partner in foreclosures. There are also some other people in the area. I'm not sure exactly yet how that money is going to be awarded, whether or not it will be an RFP process, but all of these things are going to be streamlined and quick. So once we've approved that money, there will be a process that will be quick. And then one of the things that we're doing that I'm not sure you all are aware of, but there has been I think is fantastic work. I'm just very proud of it. Our innovation team at the city has started well, let me step back a minute. One of the things that's really important to our people who are our folks in Durham who are low income is the ability to get the earned income tax credit and to get it for free. And there were 34 VITA sites that around the state that had to shut down because VITA sites provide this free service. They were shut down during COVID-19 because it requires people to come in personally and there's a lot of close personal contact. Our innovation team, Ryan Smith, and has really been trying to push us hard to come up with creative solutions and helping to create creative solutions for that, and also to help people get their $1,200 stimulus check. We know there are a lot of low-income people in Durham who are unable to get the check. That check is critically important. But if you haven't filed a tax return in the last 2 years, you're unable to get it. So what our innovation team has done is this in the last 2 weeks. First, they started working with a group of people returning from prison. I think 10 people in the first week they worked with them to kind of practice this, to do this safely, and got them signed up for their stimulus checks. Then last week, a team went to McDougall Terrace. This was the innovation team. Our city attorney's office helped out. I'm sorry that there's several other agencies, Housing Authority, and I'm sorry, there's several other agencies I should remember that can't, that really helped out with this effort. And there in McDougall Terrace, I believe another 9 people were signed up. So just in the last 2 weeks, they bought $20,000 into folks in Durham. And this mobile work will continue. But I'm also happy to announce that on June 1st or thereabouts, Reinvestment Partners, in collaboration with our city innovation team, Reinvestment Partners is opening a VITA site that will be a stationary site where we will bring people, as many people can come as possible, to get their earned income tax credit relief as well as their stimulus check. This is all important because this is one way we can try to help keep people in their homes and get them a little bit more income. So I'm really also pleased to say that about $150,000 of the CDBG money will go to this effort to get people their earned income tax credit and the stimulus checks. We don't know that it will cost that much. That amount is a placeholder. It might be less, but I just wanted to let you know that. And we think we can bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars into the hands of Durham residents if we do this proactively. We also have ESG money, Emergency Solutions Grants, that you all are familiar with. We have $600,000 in that money that will be coming to Durham. We're going to have a streamlined application process for that. And what it will be used for is homeless services, of course, to help our existing homeless service agencies fill the gaps and expand their services. So that's, I think, another great priority. We also have been putting, so those are COVID-related relief funds from the federal government, but we're also going to be putting some of our own money, your own money into it, your local tax dollars, $300,000 from the dedicated housing fund, and $162,000 in other federal money, home CHOTO money, because that's very flexible money. And that $462,000 will go to support our existing nonprofit affordable housing developers to keep them going as their tenants are unable to pay. We know that our nonprofit affordable housing developers are taking a huge hit, and this will support them to keep going through this really difficult time. So that's some of the emergency money that we're spending that I wanted to let you all know about. I'll tell you now about some of the, just talking in a little bit more about some of the kind of ongoing things. We are not going to be raising taxes for the affordable housing bond this year, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing the work. As you know, it takes a long time for these projects to get going. We're going to do the things that get them started now in anticipation of raising the taxes that the voters voted for next year. And so some of the things that are happening are, well, let me just step back before I talk about the money and talk about the oversight committee. As you all know, we're appointing an oversight committee, and Tiffany Elder and Diane Katati have graciously agreed to chair this committee, and they're going to be awesome. I had, before COVID hit, I had immediate plans to ask the council to make those appointments, and just to be frank, other stuff happened. So I'm behind on that. That's all on me, but I will be very soon proposing to the council a structure for this committee. I've already talked individually to every council member about it in terms of the kinds of seats that we want to have, but we haven't finalized it, but we need to get that process going soon, and we will. And the council members probably forgot that I talked about it individually because it was 3 months ago, but we will be back on track really soon. And as I say, that's on me, and I've been busy. But one of the things that we're doing is going ahead and get the RFPs that the voters voted for out. And so we started a small one for a communications consultant to help us think about how to inform the public, how to take public comment and information in throughout this process, including the website that we'll need and so forth, to track not just bond funding, but this oversight will include not just the $95 million bond program, but the whole $165 million for the 5 years, which include all bond spending as well as non-bond spending, the other federal money as well as the dedicated funding source. And then just, I think yesterday or the day before, we issued a $15 million RFP for multifamily production and preservation. And this would mainly be for, for example, supporting 4% LIHTC projects. There are several folks that have already come to our community development project, several developers that want to do these 4% projects. The timing is lousy given the LIHTC market timetable, but we believe, or I say we, our staff believes we'll get applications. And it takes a while for this to happen, and we hope that by the time the applications are going and through, that the market will have righted itself and these projects will be ready. So that's really important. That's going to produce a lot of units. And I'm glad we're able to go ahead and move forward with the initial phases of that. One other thing that's ongoing that's important that I need to mention is McDougall Terrace. Thank God the last family has moved back from McDougall Terrace to McDougall Terrace. And I believe Mr. Scott is on this call. I see Carl Newman on here, and there may be others from the Housing Authority as well. I just want to thank you all for all that it took to make that happen. as well as the residents of McDougall Terrace for their incredible patience, passion, and stick-to-itiveness. I'm just so grateful that everybody is home. And the problem is it's very expensive, and it costs millions. And the Housing Authority is applying to the federal government for repayment of these emergency of these expenses through emergency funds. But we don't know what's going to be forthcoming. And I'll just say that so far, we haven't had the yes answer that we've wanted from HUD, but the DHA continues to work hard on that, along with our congressional representatives. But one of the upshots of that is, as you all know, the Fallon sale, the sale of the 505 West Chapel Hill Street to the Fallon Group is ongoing. That's the COVID-19 has not stopped that deal. Fallon continues to have a very strong balance sheet. That deal is continuing to go forward, and we're expecting it to happen soon. Just want to say that this affirms the decision of the council, I would say. One of the biggest reasons to choose Fallon originally was the strength of their balance sheet, should we have any kind of a downturn. We didn't expect this kind of a downturn, but my colleagues on the call, I will say, good job. I feel certain that we made the right choice, and this proves it. But what that means, what the McDougall Terrace situation means, is that we're going to take the money from Fallon and we're going to put it at this point into the general fund. We've been planning to put that in our affordable housing fund, but we're going to be putting it temporarily into the general fund to see if we need it for McDougall Terrace relief or other critical purposes such as that. I know that this is a disappointment. It's a disappointment to all of us, but it's where we are right now. Let me just talk a little bit more, and then for your questions, I'm probably going on a little too long, but let me just tell you quickly as I can what's happening in terms of affordable housing in Durham during COVID-19. Willard Street, still going up. You all can see it. It's looking great and on schedule. The Reinvestment Partners, the 42 units on Ross Road, that project's going forward. We have the agreement, we have the funding of the scrap exchange housing. That agreement is being worked on now with the scrap exchange. I don't know the effect that COVID-19 is going to have on scrap exchange's operations, but I know from our standpoint that money is allocated for them and ready. I'm pleased that, and I don't know if a Habitat person is on or not, but 25 homes at the Durham Housing Authority site that Habitat has those units now, the old Durham Housing Authority site on by Franklin Village. I'm super happy that that's finally happening. And Habitat had to furlough its employees, but now I've brought them back to begin work on those 25 homes, which is fantastic. DCLT, I know, has been slowed in their East Durham work. You can only have one trade at a time in a building now. You can't have electric and plumbing in at the same time, for example. So this has slowed anybody who's doing that kind of work, but that's ongoing. CASA has done what it could at Maplewood and Underwood, but hasn't been able to do everything that they need to do there because you can't relocate tenants at this time. So that slowed that some, but going okay. Also, CASA is waiting on the federal government's remediation of the Carroll Street site. I'm not sure how far that's gone, but we're still waiting for that. That's, slow, but it will happen. The council has we have 3 9% tax credit applications in from Durham, 1 for the second phase of Willard Street and 2 from Durham Housing Authority on Liberty Street, to see which of our 9% tax credit deals gets funded. The council last week and then coming up in the next council cycle is approving money, any gap funding we need for whichever those 9% credits goes forward. As you all know, our Housing Authority site is our first choice, but if we don't get those, we have a great backup with Willard Street. Community development is also coming to the council for very soon for requests to support the Housing Authority for adding development staff until the Housing Authority is able to collect development fees on its work and support that staff itself. As well as we'll be providing the Housing Authority funds for relocation assistance once their redevelopments get going. We want to make sure that we can do this right, that anyone that has to be relocated, that the Housing Authority has the ability to do it right, and that everyone who needs to be relocated is extremely well served. Maureen and Damar Court are both going forward. I believe one of them's finished and one of them is almost finished, and that's fantastic. That's just great. So those are some of the things that are ongoing. Tax relief. I know that this is probably your number one topic, and I appreciate what Camelia said about that at the top of the meeting. And I've been glad to hear from all of you all. It's my understanding that the county staff has prepared a memo, or is in the deep throes of preparing that memo. The city staff has provided a lot of input to them in terms of recommendations and alternatives. And we're supposed to, I know that that will be done soon, and I'm looking forward to hearing the memo from the county staff. So I think that I've said everything that I have to start out with. I hope that that's a pretty good overview of where we are. If I could summarize it, is everything is set back, but a lot of great things are still ongoing, and a lot of tremendous work has been done on the emergency front in terms of helping our homeless residents. So there you go. Wib or whoever is next, let me know how to proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate all of that. And you'll not be surprised to learn that there's a host of questions. And what I'm going to do is just take them sort of in the order that they've come in and ask you about them. We'll get as far as we can in the time allotted. I was going to ask you if it'd be all right if any questions that we don't get to, we can send to your office in writing, and then perhaps you, working with city staff, can get answers back to us. And then what we will do is distribute that through our email list to everyone, the 300 people or so on the coalition's email list, so people will get that information and can learn from that. So I hope that'll work for you, and I hope that'll work for everyone else out there.
Yeah.
And okay, so with that said, I see that Deidreana Freeman joined us as well, and we're glad for that. And Javier, I hope you'll forgive me. I hadn't seen your name by the time I was trying to list and get ready for the show. So I want to start, Steve, Mr. Mayor, with some questions. Two questions about transportation. Now, I know we received a number of questions about roundtables, as you were talking about the roundtables that are being set up. I'm going to try and focus our questions on housing and transportation right now, but we'll send the questions about roundtables and which ones and who's on them and how can I participate to your office, and then get that information back and share it with everyone. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
So focusing then on, and I'll repeat, a question came in right at the end about this video being made available. This video session is being taped and will be posted both at the Coalition's Facebook page and also on YouTube, where we have tapes of our last meeting or two. So we'll be making the whole session available that way. All right, Mr. Mayor. So question about transportation comes from John Talmadge. We understand that the city and Go Triangle decided to scale back Go Durham bus services due to bus operator shortages and the heavy workload on the remaining staff. As businesses begin to reopen and more people travel to work, the question is, what is the city's plan to provide transportation services to Go Durham's customers that is both safe to use and reliable?
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say a couple things here that are, let me just say that I'll need to fact check myself a little bit, but the current situation, John, as I understand it, thank you for the question, is that we are about to restore some of our service that we'd had to cut, and we're hoping to continue to be able to do that. We are we need to gradually add back more and more service till we're up to where we need to be. We have had some trailing vehicles to pick up folks who have not been able to get on the bus because of the social distancing requirement on the bus has limited the number of people that can be on a bus at one time. So we have provided a few trailing vehicles in particular circumstances to be able to pick up people who have been left. I'm sorry, I don't have any numbers on that. I could get them if you wanted more exact information, you can write me. So the plan is to get our transportation system gradually back up to the full capacity that it needs to be at. But in the meantime, we have to be socially distancing. And so all this is going to be very, very difficult to think through. We did get a lot of, it's the one area where the city got a bunch of money from the federal government is transit. And so our staff is going to be thinking through how to use this transit money to get our system back up to where it needs to be. So I'm sorry if that answer is a little vaguer than I wish it was, but that's what I know.
Well, that's a good answer. To lead into the second transportation question, and then I'm going to start taking others. But the question that followed that was the City of Durham's received $12.2 million. You noted this in federal money for public transportation through the CARES Act. Will the city dedicate the question is this, will the city dedicate a small fraction of this money to the purchase of face coverings for Go Durham and Access customers and riders in order to protect the bus operators and other customers with whom they're in contact?
So one thing I'll say is our county commission has asked for us to start by contributing our travel money, our city council travel money. And I believe the council's contributing, we're not traveling now. I think that our city council is contributing about $40,000 in our travel money. I almost never travel for council business, unlike Whig Gully used to go everywhere. But I've got something like $17,000 a year that I never spend, and that'll be contributed to face covering. So that'll be a little bit of a start. There's a lot of private resources being put into this now. Instead of saying that we'll use that money, what I'll say is we need to figure out what money we need to use to make sure that people who are riding our buses have face coverings. There's a huge effort underway in Durham, covering the Triangle, covering Durham, to provide face coverings for people who, especially for everybody, but people especially who are in vulnerable populations. And that includes anybody who has to ride a transit, either in vulnerable populations or in crowded situations like a bus. So it's critically important that we provide those face coverings. Exactly what money it's going to come from, I don't know yet. But in answer to the question, we need to make sure that everybody who rides a bus is offered a face covering who doesn't have one every time they ride.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then I'm going to start down the questions here. And the first one that came in as a question or for comment was from Councilmember Charlie Reese. And Charlie said, Steve, lots of folks have asked the Durham City Council to enact a moratorium on evictions in the city of Durham through the end of calendar 2020. Can you talk a bit about that?
I don't think that's within our power. I think it's something that, we're examining if we can do something like that. But as you know, this was judicially mandated. This is a matter for the courts. And I don't think that that's within our power.
All right. Yeah, the legislature would have to change for something like that to happen probably. The next question says the hotel agreement by the county has served primarily UMD, Urban Ministries. But what is the process if an unhoused or unsheltered person becomes sick, or when a person returns to Durham from a prison facility where COVID had been present?
So I mentioned earlier the work on a quarantine facility. That would be the solution. That's a super important question. This is going to happen. We have 60 people coming home from federal prison every month. And I will just tell you all that I have been in constant touch with the governor's office. I discussed this with Secretary Cohen, and I discussed it with the governor himself about my concern that when people are leaving, that this is a concern that I have all the time, but I have doubly now, that when people are coming home from prison, the prison system needs to get them in contact with our local reentry council so that we can serve them. We have a wonderful welcome home program that provides peer support. We have a great local reentry council that the county does a really good job of funding. That we have a wonderful staff. Our Criminal Justice Resource Center is fabulous. And we can't get good cooperation from the State Department of Public Safety, letting us know when people coming home and what their situation is. I have been advocating around this a lot. I'm very well educated on this by my wife, who has been involved in these issues and educates me about exactly what to say to these folks when I say it. But I will tell you, it remains a big concern. So for everyone that we can get in contact with, we are offering peer support, and that's important. In terms of people coming home from state prison, I have asked if they are testing everyone that comes home, and the answer is they are not, and they don't currently have any plans to do so. If there's an outbreak in a state prison, they will test everyone there. For example, News Correctional. We had 18 people come home from Durham last year from News Correctional. And that's where a huge outbreak is. This is a very big concern. And I'll just tell you, I've been advocating a lot around it. We do have the quarantine facility, but it remains a big concern as long as the state's not doing its job in connecting us with people and providing adequate tests for people who are leaving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next question is also from a council member, Deidreana Freeman. She says, Steve, could you talk more about transportation, the adjustments that have been made? You've already addressed that some, so I'm not sure what else.
I'll just talk briefly about it. Our drivers have been provided with face coverings. And we're requiring social distancing on the buses. I think the number is now only 16 people can be on a bus. Mm-hmm. I believe that number is correct. And then we're providing these tailing vehicles. Those are some of the things that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Stella Adams, and she says, Steve, what efforts have been made to ensure minority businesses are aware of these RFPs? You mentioned the 2 RFPs early in your remarks. So what efforts have been made to ensure minority businesses are aware of and have a chance to participate in that?
Stella, I don't know that. I will find that out. I'm assuming that our staff has done, the outreach that they need to, but I'll double check and make sure.
Okay, thank you. Question that may be in the same place, but it's how is the funding to the nonprofit affordable housing developers being distributed? That again may be something you may need to give us back specifics later, but do you know about that?
Let's see. I believe, let me just look at my notes real quick. I don't know, other than that will be an application process that will be fast. But I could, if anyone wants to email me that, I can, if someone just send me an email on that, I will get more specific information. Okay,
we'll make that part of the questions that we forward on to you, and that way there'll be a chance to respond to that. One of the, Catherine Pleo wanted to say, what was it that was being said about the scrap exchange? You mentioned them.
Catherine, the city, so the scrap exchange is redeveloping its property. And one of the things they want to do is put affordable housing units on it. The city provided, I believe the amount is around $600,000 to help get them going on that process. I know that the agreement around that money is being worked on now. I was only commenting that the agreement hasn't been signed yet, and I'm not sure, what the impact that COVID-19 is having on the scrap exchange in general and their ability to do this development. I'm not saying that I have any information about it. I don't. I just know that whenever in this situation, there's so many things up in the air that, I know that deal hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay, time for one more question, Mr. Mayor, if we can, then we got to jump. But, and this is from Stella Adams, and it's a comment really, but happy to have you respond to, but she notes that it's not necessary to transfer money from the sale of 505 West Chapel Hill Street. By the way, if you would say what your understanding of that amount of money is, that'd be helpful to us. But anyway, she says it's not necessary to transfer the money from the sale of the 505 property to the general fund to assist the residents of McDougall Terrace. McDougall Terrace, it's already an eligible activity. And she says at keep your word, # keep your word, and place these funds in the housing fund and fund the tax assistance program. That's her comment. Can't hear you.
Sorry, point taken. Thank you. I appreciate that comment. It's an important comment.
All righty. All righty. Do you have I've said that was your last question, but in closing, can you give us your understanding of where both you are and the council is with regard to the proposal for a tax assistance grant program for the city and the county? Now, I know you just represent the city and work with the city, and we'll get county folks to speak for themselves, but as you know, that's been a major effort. The cost is down to about $890,000 for the city to set up the program and have it run for the first year for folks at 30% AMI and below, and the people who are already in your long-term. You don't want to kick the people already in your long-term homeowners assistance program out. The thought there is if you can't do rehabilitation in the coming, say, 6 months or longer, and from wherever else COVID funds, can you fund a way to keep these homeowners, low-income homeowners, in their homes? Because as you know, Mr. Mayor, as we all do, once they're gone, they're not coming back to Durham as homeowners. And they may not come back to Durham at all, and their families will be lost to us in terms of the economic diversity that we care so much about.
So I cannot speak for the county at all, and I won't even attempt to speak for our city council. I'll just say for myself that I'm anxious to see what the county memo shows. And I know that they're evaluating cost, administrative costs and other. I'll be anxious to hear what it says. I'll be listening and thinking about it. That's, as I've said to other groups, this is not something I can commit to right now, but I sure am listening. And before COVID-19, I felt 100% sure this was something we wanted to do. Now, really need to think about it and be looking to hear the costs and what the program would look like. Yeah.
Okay.
I know that's not the answer you want to hear, you guys, but it's the answer I'm given. I'm waiting to see and look forward to getting the information.
Okay. We appreciate that. We appreciate you. And we appreciate the 18-hour to 20-hour days and the incredible 7 days a week and the amount of work that you and the council and our city staff are doing. So we remain grateful, look forward to continuing to engage with you around these issues.
Thank you for having me, everybody. I really appreciate you. And here's my hug.
Virtual hug, very good. Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me turn now to updates. Jim Savara, I hope you're on the call here. I have you as the property tax assistance program that was just mentioned to give us an update.
Hello, Webb. Yes, I'm here, and we have just heard the mayor summarize the uncertain situation now. There have been delays that prevented this proposal coming from staff earlier. We hadn't been aware that a memo is on its way to being released. We will keep encouraging the council and the commission to act on this critical issue now. Low-income, extremely low-income homeowners are going to get big tax bills because of property reappraisals this summer. We need to help them and keep them in place.
Jim, thank you. That's very helpful. Yeah, this continues to be a major focus. John Talmadge, we're going to get from you comments or update if you have it about the mobility equity campaign that the Coalition, Bike Durham, and a number of other community organizations are working on.
Thanks, Wib. Right now, it boils down to two real issues around public transportation. The first is making sure that there are face coverings made available for all of Go Durham and Go Durham Access customers. So we're hopeful that the commitment from the city and the county and private organizations in Durham will continue to provide a supply of those face coverings, so that not just Go Durham riders, but countywide, that anyone who needs them has them. We have a lot of gratitude for the people who are volunteering through Covering the Triangle and through NC Face Mask Warriors, either through the donations, or a lot of people are sewing masks and providing them to us so that we can distribute them. We've distributed over 3,500 so far in the last month, but more are needed, and we want to keep up that work. I'll put in my email address if anyone is interested, but we are going to need volunteers to continue to go down to Durham Station and help us with those distributions. And the second is really advocating that the city continue to work at and be creative to think about how to maintain the mobility for the people who rely on the service. And so we've been writing letters and having communications with staff and elected officials in partnership with coalitions, leadership, with People's Alliance. We've been staying in touch with leadership of the Durham Committee and the Durham Congregations in Action. A lot of this happens pretty fast. So that's the other main focus of the effort, is to make sure that, especially as we begin to open up and more people need to be traveling, that for those who rely on Go Durham services, that can be there, or alternatives can be made available so they can get to their jobs or get to the other essential services that they need. Thanks.
Okay, John, thank you for that. And for you and all the volunteers who go down to Durham Station and distribute masks, I know you'll talk about how you can take 1,000 and they're gone in a few hours. So there's a real need there that we need to figure out how better to meet. The next thing on the agenda is I'm going to give a brief report about the redevelopment of the city-owned property at 505 West Chapel Hill Street. As I think most people on the call are familiar with, it's been a multiple year effort to try and ensure that the redevelopment includes affordable housing there, specifically 80 units of rental housing that's available to folks at 60% average median income and below. The council, the mayor, were firm on that. And at the end of the day, that's the commitment made by the developer. But we've been through a winter and spring of the developer both dealing with this difficult economic situation that flows from COVID and the development future, but also to work out some major negotiations and agreements between the city and the developer. I'm informed this morning that the documents, the key documents, a development plan that shows in general conceptual ways what will happen for the rezoning request, and then restrictive covenants that will limit how the property is used have largely been put together, and they will firmly include 80 units or more, 60% AMI, and key in perpetuity. These are not units that will be affordable for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, but affordable indefinitely going forward. So there'll be permanent affordable housing for our community, which is the best we can get. And we hope will be a model actually for other developments that take place going forward. So all of that, it looks like it's coming together well, and it will go to council either at their June cycle, or they take, I think, a break at July and come back, and then it'll be the August 3rd, start with that August 3rd cycle. We will be sure to let everybody know in the coalition and through our email list when that's coming up, so you'll know when you can weigh in and what's going on with that. The last update was on the rental assistance response to COVID, and Larissa Seibel was going to make comments about that, although I think, Larissa, we've had the mayor give us a sense of what the city's planning to do, but do you want to add comments at this point?
Yes, this is Larissa Seibel. I'm not sure about how the sound is going to be for the folks on Facebook. Oh, they're all gone. Okay, so the next step is working with the county, I think, and the city to help the residents who are at risk of eviction if the court's ruling on eviction moratorium comes off on June 1st. We need to be ready. I'm hopeful that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court does extend that eviction moratorium, and if anyone is still on this call who can communicate with the Chief Justice's assistant, that might be helpful. But I'm very proud of our city and county for stepping up and putting forward the rental assistance and the eviction diversion funds. That's it.
All right, thank you. I want to just note that in terms of events and meetings, that there's a virtual city council meeting tonight. I believe the fun never ends, does it, Mr. Mayor? And that public comment can be made to the council. And there's a website given on the agenda that was mailed out to everybody yesterday that gives you a way to make comments. And of course, we would love to have folks weigh in with council if you think the idea of a taxpayer assistance grants, which interestingly enough are not really a budget expenditure, but a tax expenditure. And I believe the council's already showing a lower receipt rate on tax receipts for the year going forward. So in some ways, it's already budgeted in, not getting that money. What we're hopeful is that the grants, the non-budget expenditure grants, will actually be a way of allocating that money to make sure that ones we don't lose are the low-income homeowners, and at no real impact to the city budget. So if you like the Taxpayer Assistance Grant Program, please weigh in on that with council. If you want to support the council's work, also in allocating funds for eviction, for rental assistance, please weigh in on that. We've got a technical committee meeting virtually on Tuesday, May 26th at 5:30, and there's a link and would invite you to join us. There's a coordinating committee meeting. The next one is Monday, June 1st at noon. And you can contact us for more details. And we'll look forward to seeing you all, if not before then, for the June monthly meeting. That said, thanks again to our mayor, to our city council members who've joined us, county commissioners, and the staff from both the city and county who've made time to be with us today, as well as to all the citizens who work with us and help us and care so much about safe, decent, affordable shelter for our community. Thank you all.
All right, so please tune in next month and have a great day. I'll post this on YouTube very soon. Take care.
Thank you, Bree.